I figure I may as well get started on making this video about boring topics. You see, I know a lot of things that literally nobody cares about. And, I don't think they're good conversation starters, nor are they anything worth talking about. If anything, I'm the one who's talking about it while they're just listening and not really contributing anything, which I can tell will get stale for them, and they're gonna find it absolutely annoying and they'll want me to shut up. So, this video is essentially going to be like a collection of random stuff that I know and whatever comes to mind that I just happen to know, that I happen to learn and whatnot, and yeah, it's just boring stuff. Hopefully you guys find boringness entertaining. Originally, I was just going to keep this video to be about numbers and whatnot, because I have a lot to say about numbers themselves, but I figured why don't I just expand the topic list, the topic range, because there are plenty of other things that I'd like to talk about. However, I also know that most people tend to react to shock imagery and pornography more so than anything I'd ever normally talk about, so why don't we start off with the greatest attention attractor. There is a number which has great cultural significance that is essentially both shock imagery and pornography. It instantly traumatizes those who know the number. And you have to get, I'm gonna let you guys guess, the length of the number. Is it 2 digits long? Is it 6 digits long? 69's something that people assign to with sex because, it's like 2 heads and whatnot, and then the fucking end of the thing's essentially the bottom part or whatever, and then they just suck. I know that 21 people have, like, I saw a meme back when I was in like middle school or high school where like you could visualize 21 as like butts, as like essentially like you see the number 2 is basically a butt and somebody's like essentially kneeling down, and 1 is it's self-explanatory. And I know a kid back at my I forgot the exact time it happened, but I know that a student shared that meme with some of his friends. I overheard the conversation. I'm not friends with him or anything of the sort. I just happened to overhear him because we're classmates and whatnot. And, people think that that kid was into butt stuff because he knew about the 21 meme being essentially fucking looks like butt stuff. So that's... I feel bad for that kid, but honestly, I think they were having a good time anyway, so I probably shouldn't. Have you guys guessed what number I'm talking about? I'm pretty sure 6 digits should have clued you in. 177013. Its cultural significance is amazing. Simply by mentioning it, you can essentially send people into a fucking frenzy. You guys immediately get sent into this world where this schoolgirl who has no friends and has wasted like all her life not really making any friends and decided to change it in high school, only for it to go super, super wrong. And because of all that, she's like orchestrized words. And she becomes like back alley prostitute. She gets a boyfriend who like deals with drugs, and then she got pregnant, and then I lose my monetization because of all the topics I will dive into. Great start, isn't it? I could have started with something more innocent, but I figured this may as well get your attention. By the way, 177,013 is a prime number. Isn't that interesting? If you square it, the last 2 digits will be 69. And if you square the number, you get 420, and a little bit of decimals following that. Isn't that neat? Speaking of squares, the only number which has 3 factors are squares of prime numbers. You can't find any composite number which has exactly 3 factors other than squares of primes, because the only factors are 1, the square root of the square of the prime. So, you know, like 9 has like 1, 3 in itself, 9. 16, no, that's multiply 4. 7, 49, I believe. Yeah, there's nothing that you could add, or there's nothing that else that can be multiplied. So it's like 1, 7, and 49. Those are only 3 factors. Any other number, like I'd say 15, it's 1, 3, 5, and itself. So, you know, no matter what number you pick, you're always going to have at least 4 factors. Because, you know, you're always, you know, because essentially, well, you're always going to have at least 2 prime numbers, and then 1 in itself. As for 5 factors and whatnot, honestly, you just, like, I'm not sure how else to put it other than, like, once you prime factor it, you only get, like, or I guess, I don't know, not prime factor it, but yeah, that's essentially it, I guess, regarding like that, regarding like squares and whatnot. But it's also like neat how, you know, 3 seems to be like a really, really common number, and you always want to have at least 3 bullet points for your essay, like 3 points whenever you're talking about literally any topic or trying to convince them. You should have at least 3, or at least like just major points to get across. And usually many things can be summarized within like 3 points. And you know, that it's really, really interesting, I guess, in that regard, because, you know, 3 isn't that special of a number, but I definitely would say that it is a part of a really special number, 137, or at least in its digit. 137 is a prime number, but if you divide 1 by 137, you get a universal constant for some goddamn reason. And, you know, that it's one of the things that I've noticed, but it seems like prime numbers have quite a bit of, like, they're just everywhere. Surprisingly more common. Like, usually people probably don't even think about like how many people there are or whatever, and like the exact like statistics and like the actual count of things. Surprisingly, I just take a good guess, round it to like the nearest prime number, and it surprisingly works out. Even like, I don't know how it fucking works, but if you just guess a random prime number, honestly, you're gonna get close to the answer depending on like how you use it and whatnot. So that's a thing. And I don't know how else to put it other than like, you know, numbers are really freaking neat because, you know, we also have like base 10, you know, we had count like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, because us humans have 10 fingers. In fact, if alien life has like a different number of limbs and different way of counting, they might use like a base 12 system if they have like 6 fingers or like 6 special like limbs or whatever that they would count with, or you know, it could be literally anything. We could honestly, I have this like theory that like if we ever do meet alien life and they have like their own unique numbering system, we could tell quite a bit just from their base numbering system. And not only that, depending, I'd say, I completely lost my train of thought there. Okay, let me just look it up, because I have like, oh yeah, measurement systems. Depending on like how like we choose the meter to measure like mostly everything. Americans use feet and whatnot, and miles and whatnot. It doesn't really fucking matter, but like our measurement systems are kind of, you know, relative to how we use it. Like, we wouldn't use, like, I guess, a centimeter to build everything that we come across. Like, this desk of mine has, like, it's not going to be measured in centimeters unless, like, it really wants to be, unless, like, people have to be really well, I guess, yeah, no, the people who built the parts and whatnot for me to assemble it have to be that precise. But generally, when you're, like, walking across, you know, on the sidewalk or something, you're gonna measure things in, like, meters or so, or decameters or something, because I don't know, it's just, I feel like that the size of our unit measuring, or at least our most common measuring unit, can tell us, like, just how large our world is, and the stuff that we build using just using the measurements and the units of measurements and how big they are. So, you know, we could figure out, like, we could probably, like, visualize, we could determine, like, the scale of alien worlds just by, like, how they measure things. Like, if their measurement system is larger than ours, maybe their planet is bigger, or, you know, if it's smaller, or, you know, it could be something like that, which again is very, I feel like you could probably do that if you're smart enough and can figure out, like, how to get around that, and figure out how to, like, literally use measurements as a tool to analyze alien worlds if we ever do meet aliens. Like, if they just pull out a wacky ruler or something, their version of a ruler, you could probably, like, tell quite a bit just from that. And, you know, it sounds absurd, but we also have plenty of other weird things, like, well, I guess I'd say category theory is probably one thing that I know is very interesting, and essentially works in a very, very abstract thing, I guess. I don't know how else to put it other than, like, category theory is the thing that essentially unites all of mathematics, because it essentially identifies the most common traits in our systems of math that we've built. You know, there's always going to be, like, there's always going to be something that is equal to another thing, and, you know, if we add two numbers, it doesn't matter which order they're on, the order that they're done. You could do 2 plus 1 or 1 plus 2, they'll both be the same thing, but for some systems that's not true. And but, you know, like, stuff like that, like, things just happen to be equal, it doesn't matter which order you do it in. And, you know, there's always a way, I guess, like, if you ever had to, like, you know, do something to numbers, or not even numbers, I guess, technically anything, including, like, surfaces and that kind of abstract junk, you know, turn a donut into a cup, that's, like, the most common example. But, you know, if you can, like, essentially map, you know, from one set of things to another set of things, and can reverse it, you know, inversibility or whatnot, then, you know, you have a category or whatever, and you can, like, do that kind of stuff. And, you know, you could do categories of categories, and it's just, like, all that. Essentially, it's just saying that the rules that we use for even simple elementary math, I guess, has, like, commonalities to straight up the math we use in quantum physics. So that's a bit of a surprise, isn't it? Of course, that's just how I'd put it. It's not exactly, it's not accurate, because, one, I haven't delved deep enough into category theory to even say, how good it is, but that's essentially how I've understood, or at least that's how I understand it now. Category theory isn't necessarily, like, something particularly crazy, I guess. It's essentially just saying that a lot of things happen to be very, very samey, and because they're very, very samey, maybe the things we do for this thing that we have will also work for the other thing, which is similar to this thing, or rather, it's exactly the same thing, but it just talks about something else in different terms. But in the end, the different words mean the same thing, and the different methods, the different ways of going about things, are essentially the same as doing it in this setting, in that setting, and whatnot. That's what category theory is in terms of like what it means in math, from what I understand anyway. And abstraction is probably one of the things that is probably hard for a lot of people. I've mentioned this before in some of my previous videos when I go on very, very long rants about how crap the world is, but critical thinking requires like understanding of like abstract thoughts and spaces and what abstraction is. Abstraction is essentially taking away from concrete details, like discrete details, like things you can actually describe. Like, you could describe one sheet of paper in a book and whatnot. I have this notebook in front of me, but it doesn't, like, when I say notebook, you probably are picturing a different kind of notebook. Like, I have, like I can mention all these details on my notebook. There's like a little metal rings around it. It has like these, the blue lines and the red line vertically towards it. There's like little yellow slips of paper in between some of them, which have like essentially divides this notebook into sections to use. There's at the end of it, there's like, essentially a brown cardboard like thing to like essentially protect the paper, I guess. The front cover is red, and it's covered in old blood, which has turned like brownish at like the bottom of my notebook, because I really do cut deeply into my nails, and whenever it bleeds a lot, I just remember like me wiping like some of the blood on the bottom of my notebook. So now there's like just like a layer. There's just like not really a layer, I guess, on the, like, if you, it's not, like, if you, like, flatten all the paper and, like, string them all out, then, you have, like, a bit of, like, a stack of paper, which is essentially, like, a rectangular prism, and, like, on the bottom side of, on the bottom of all the pages, on that side, there's just, like, blood, which you can see. If you just, like, pull up one page, you'll barely notice it, but there is a bit of like a brownish line at the very bottom, depending on like which page it is, and even then it's not like completely covering the bottom of it. Abstraction is essentially taking away from all these details, right? Like, I have like all this writing of like I have like Japanese stuff, verbs, iru, eru turns into doing, done, te, ta, utsuru, te, nubumu, nde, nda, and verb extensions, and we have like linear algebra with determinants A. If A is n times n, determine A t. I completely forgot what that is. I don't remember what the actual fucking term is for that. It's essentially like a kind of a bit of a reverse, I guess, an inverse kind of thing, but don't quote me on that. Abstraction is essentially like, I don't need to describe all these details to describe a notebook. Notebook is the abstraction of this thing on my desk right now, which I pulled out because I was going to study more Japanese grammar, because I've been putting off for a long time, because I've been focusing on the vocabulary and the kanji and whatnot way too much. I've gotten enough of a hang of it, and a bit more, I've expanded my vocabulary quite a bit. Albeit I don't really put it much into speech, because I don't really have much of a use with volcano. Like, what am I supposed to do? Kazan? Like, how am I supposed to use that in daily conversation? Like, Ohayo, kyo wa, これ火山 or そこの火山が won't explode, will it? Or fuck, I don't know enough Japanese to fucking say that, but I don't think I'm gonna be using like volcano in a conversation. Nor would I really use fire in a conversation unless like I'm going camping, but of course it's like components of other words. And there's also like entry, like inputting things into something. Nyuroku, like I'm probably like whenever I type something, I'm essentially entering something in. Like I guess, 俺が nyuroku, I guess. And I don't need to put like a da or this at the end because it's a verb. I don't really need to like. It essentially is saying I'm doing something. I could say 私は人間です。人間だ. If I'm using a noun, then I have to like put that there and whatnot. But I am getting off topic. Essentially, abstraction is simply, saying that I don't need to go into all the fucking details just to describe similar objects with similar construction which have the same use or similar use. Like you could say tools as a whole have like, they have like a certain construction to them where they are useful, but like tools themselves are not all the same, and saying that are all the same simply because they serve the purpose of serving a purpose is I don't know what to say other than that people are genuinely stupid. In fact, I feel like whenever I'm engaging in online arguments, especially if you guys follow me before on Twitter, while I was like really adamant in debates and whatnot regarding art and whatnot, I've noticed that a lot of people do weird abstract things, I guess, that make no fucking sense and make no practical use whatsoever. It's essentially just nonsense. Like they're saying, how would I put it? They're like saying, I guess origami paper is the same thing as printer paper. And because they're the same thing, you should be able to do anything and everything with it. And or at least both of them should be able to serve like the same function no matter what. But printer paper is designed to be thicker. It's designed to like, not get bent and really get screwed over. Origami paper is meant to be folded. It's way more thinner and allows you to like, it makes bending things and crafting things easier. Printer paper is not built for that. Although you can build quite some good stuff with it just using printer paper. It has a limit. Like it's, even though you think printer paper is thin as it is, and paper is thin enough to give you like paper cuts and whatnot. Surprisingly, your regular printer paper, the paper that makes up your notebooks, that's not as useful as origami paper when it comes to like paper crafts, which I've done plenty of times before. I remember like a lot of recipes of like building. I've crafted a lot of like paper bunnies, paper shurikens, made lots of planes. I completely forgot how to build like an origami rabbit, which is unfortunate. But I also built, because I have like at least a decent grasp of like how to craft paper and bend it and really mold it. I have like the experience to build more complex objects which involve glue, such as like paper figurines, which I have built like two of them. One is Yoshino from Date Alive, a little chibi figure, and one is Raisin Udonge Inaba from Toho Project, which I found on paper crafting websites because I wanted to like have my own figure, but I didn't really want to pay for a figure because holy shit, they're really expensive. Why the fuck would you spend $60 on fucking, I don't even know if it's plastic or not, some kind of thing which is like durable, but it's kind of I mean you could just build one yourself. Like you could just get the hang of it yourself and make your own, and that's essentially that, I guess. But yeah, no, I can build stuff like that easily with paper, glue, tape, probably, depending on what I'm crafting, but generally with like stuff like paper figurines and like paper crafts and that kind of stuff, you don't really need tape unless you don't have glue, because they generally come with like tabs which you just apply glue to and then stick them together. And generally glue will be your best bet in like putting everything together, because they're usually set in parts anyway. And I guess, yeah, I don't know how else to put it, but like that's how I'd put. There's one way of putting like how people abstract things and then treat things which aren't the same as the same. Like, it's like treating a computer like a hammer because they're both tools that help people get things done. It's just like, no, that's not how it that's not how it works. Why are you arguing this? Do you not know that the details matter? Like, abstraction makes things easier to like generalize and understand, but the details still fucking matter. Why the fuck are you why are you assuming that just because these two things are like, technically the same in a very, very abstract way, in a very, very abstract sense, they're both the same in they're just essentially the same thing and we should treat it as the same thing? No. Everything's made out of atoms. Everything is made out of like quarks, atoms, electrons, and then those build up molecules. That does not make everything the same. Alright? Does not make everything the same. You could be a heuristic and argue that it is, but everybody else, you should be able to understand my point in that my hands cannot do what a furnace could do. My feet cannot do what I guess computer can do, just because they're made out of the same atoms. And also, technically, my hands and my feet are tools for me to get things done. We don't consider them like the usual, like, hammer, wrench, those kinds of tools. But if we had to abstract that, then yes, my limbs are a tool. In fact, my brain is a tool, even though it's essentially where I store my consciousness and everything, and memories and whatnot. It's still technically a tool which does that for me. But, it's not the fucking same thing. It's just, if you abstract it, if you just take away all the details and, just analyze it from, like, a really, really far out point, then they're kind of the same, right? Yeah, if you want to fucking be that guy, I guess, but it's just, when you apply things which essentially, how would I put it? They aren't similar in that they don't matter. Like, how would I put it? It's treating that the details which make them significantly different and relevant to an issue, you just ignore it for the sake of making the comparison and then judging everything based on this one object and connecting it to this object and must say the same about this object simply because it shares properties, and which properties is generally very, very abstracted or complete lies and hogwash. And I don't know how else to put it other than internet arguments is essentially just dumb people pretending to be smart. And I can't say that I'm different in that regard, but that's just how things are online, I guess. I do try to learn things, alright? I do have depression and whatnot, dysthymia, technically. I don't feel good at all doing literally anything and everything. I feel no sense of accomplishment being able to, like, I self-studied calculus when I was in high school in geometry class. I don't know how else to put it other than, like, it's not an accomplishment. Like, it really wasn't that hard. And even if it was hard, it still wouldn't like give me any satisfaction, because it's, even if it's not done or is done, it's not exactly going to give me the satisfaction or whatnot, and I just don't have the pleasure of that. That's just something with depression and dysthymia, more accurately. Depression is completely fucking different. Depression is essentially baby's version. I'm not gonna pretend that it's equally as worse. No, it's different. It's different. And honestly, I would argue that dysthymia is worse, because depression and whatnot, I don't feel that. From what it's described and how like it's defined, people care necessarily about the details and whatnot. I guess if I had to put it, it's like 3:25. Maybe I should end this little part of the video here and then continue on, because I can tell you this is going to be a very, very long video, and I'm going to have way more topics to go off of, or rather go off on, or off about. But I guess just quickly get it done, I guess. Dysthymia and depression are not the same thing. Like, yes, they're similar, and if you abstract that they're both mental fucking illnesses, but they are not the same, and although the treatment's also essentially the same, you just, like, play a gacha game with meds and hope for the best. It's very different on how it essentially works. Depression is characterized by, like, I guess, at least 2 weeks of just not feeling it. Dysthymia is essentially like spanning years. You literally feel nothing, and I'm pretty sure that my pediatrician back before I switched to a family practice said that I showed signs of like depression and dysthymia like since elementary school. So like I don't think I've ever felt full emotions as they are, other than like stuff like anger and bitterness and that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, honestly, I feel like it's one of the things that is wrong about me as well, because like if I ever do get that cured, I'm probably going to be overwhelmed by my own emotions. So, I'm kind of having to live with dysthymia whether or not I like it or not, because unfortunately I'm way too used to it. If I suddenly gained the ability to feel everything that I wanted to and can feel, I can only imagine just how overwhelmed I'd get and how stupid I'd act, because I already act pretty stupid whenever I get high on any emotions, happiness especially. I finally feel good, I'm talking with people, I'm just having fun, but because I don't know how normal people act or whatnot, I end up screwing up, and then I lose all that, and it's just like, I didn't have like the cognitive thought to like consider, this is probably a stupid idea, don't say that, don't do that, but I still did it anyway, because I was high on literal happiness, and I couldn't do jack shit about it, because I was just stupid not even back then, but anytime I get high on any emotions, except sadness, I guess, it's kinda, yeah, I don't know how to describe it other than that. It's just a pain in the ass, I guess, and honestly, again, I do want to cure my depression and whatnot, but dysthymia is going to be one of those things. In fact, I don't even think my current meds are working, even with the up dosage. Guess I'm going to have to fucking switch it again, but, yeah. And it's honestly surprising as well, because, like, in regards to critical thinking and abstract thoughts, you learn in sociology and stuff that, like, straight up, a lot of the population can't actually do that. Like, they can't critically think. And also, another thing about sociology is that, a lot of the general public actually struggles to even think and conceive of things. Like, I can imagine an apple in my head, and I used to be able to, like, even imagine its taste and whatnot, and literally, like, viscerally experience it, but it's kind of just lost on me. But it's, I can imagine a concept of an apple and what it's like and it's whatnot. I know the details and whatnot, but it's surprising that, like, even with, like, morality, people genuinely struggle to understand that, most people think that morality and whatnot and just, like, being kind to others is only worth a damn because the law said so, because God said so, or because it's in their own self-interest to, rather than, like, being genuinely, like, everybody is the same on some fundamental level. We can all suffer, and thus we should decrease it if we want to have a world where everybody can live the most enriching life. That's actually a thing people struggle at. They can't conceive of the fact that the law does not determine morality. It's not God. It's not fucking cartoons and all their fucking morals. You don't need a cartoon to tell you what's right or wrong. I hope to God you don't. But that's one of the things that, like, people can't fucking do. 1 out of 5 people are able to critically think and just do that stuff. Everybody else, they can't. And it's just like, what the... Are you real? Are you for real? And that's just messed up. That's just messed up. And, in sociology, we also have, like, these different lenses for analyzing, like, sociological behaviors. I believe it's... I don't remember the views and the exact names, but I do know that one of the things that sociology has is, like, post something, I guess. There is symbolic interactionalist, functionalist, and conflict perspective. Those are the 3 main ones, and then there's, like, this post something else. Functionalist is essentially how things function, I guess. How, like, it's functional if it contributes to how good everybody works, like society as a whole works, and bad if it doesn't, and if it becomes unstable. Conflict perspective is essentially, it apparently is traced back to Karl Marx. I know that one of them was related. I know that one of the perspectives was related to, like, communism and whatnot. And I guess I finally figured. Yeah, now I remember. I'm looking at these notes. Yeah, conflict perspective is probably one of those things. And essentially, conflict perspective is, like, people are competing, I guess. Different groups are competing against each other, and that's a way how we can analyze sociological behaviors and try to figure out a solution. Symbolic interactionalist it's affected at the institutional level. I don't remember what it's about. And also, I'm, like, genuinely tired at the moment, but there's, like, a lot of there's, like, 4 perspectives that I learned, and those are one of the 3. But there's also, like, what was it called? Postmodernism, a sociological approach that attempts to define how society has progressed to an era beyond modernity, in which individuals are more likely to have a greater importance placed. Oh, I don't remember. how they view sociological phenomenon quite postmodern. It's about philosophy as it is about sociology. This is the cells of modernism, structuralism, certain ways and manners. God, I completely forgot about all this shit. Oh, it's essentially trying to analyze. Oh yeah, no, I think I did prefer postmodernism and functionalism mostly. Symbolic interactionalist is also one of the things I agreed on, but conflict interactionalism was definitely not one of them, I feel. But it did explain quite a bit of like stuff, so it really depends. Postmodern perspectives on sociology is essentially trying to analyze case by case, which is generally, I feel, is the ideal method for understanding things, because you can't ever truly understand everything just by like that kind of like always a fundamentalist, you know, like if it works for society, it's always going to be good, and we should like focus on like making things either. We should always make things that are like essentially functional for society, but which, you know, sometimes it will discount the individual. So yeah, but you know, it's really fucked up that like not a lot of the population is capable of critical thinking, of like being able to determine what's right and wrong without like being told by somebody or something else, or that, you know, it's that they only act on like being good because it benefits them and nothing else. And you know, that's not exactly a bad thing, but you know, the thing is, what benefits most people isn't limited and restricted to simply life and its enrichment, but whatever the fuck disgusts people is considered, I guess, how would I put it nicely, not in their interests, against their interests. Like, it could be something completely harmless as cigarettes, and it could be something as freaking harmless as drawings. Again, my drawings are kind of like my main expertise with all the fucking fictional debates and whatnot. It just so happened to fall in my lap when I saw artists I was following get bullied off of the internet. Yeah, it's... I don't know how else to put it. It's just... I've lost my train of thought, but... you recall that, like, it really isn't a lot of people in the world who can actually, like, think to themselves, like, I should respect this person's goals and their and their, you know, like, their feelings and their, you know, what they do with their life and, you know, whatnot. That's a thing that people actually struggle at, which I am genuinely fucking surprised by, because, like, I always thought people were just plain bitter about the world. Like, you know, they're just angry, you know, they're just, like, you know, it's like evil begets evil. Like, somebody did something wrong to me, I'll do something wrong to them back. You know, it was kind of like that. That's how I imagined the world. But then I freaking learned that they aren't even... most people aren't capable of being good. So it's like... so... I can't get mad at them because they aren't even capable of being good. Because they're literally incapable of, like, understanding what it's like being the other person, and what it's like, you know, doing things that matter and not focusing on things that don't matter, and inflicting suffering on others and honestly themselves in a lot of respects, simply because they are somehow slighted, even when it's not directed at them, even though it doesn't even insult them in any general direction. Like, People can't fucking do that. People can't understand what it's like to just be good. Like that's a small portion of the population is able to do that. Like literally a small fraction. Like you'd probably expect, like, I don't know, freaking maybe that the people who can't be good and like who can't understand why it's important to be nice to other people and why it matters in the grand scheme of things, you'd expect that to be the smaller portion of the population. No, it's the complete other way around. Most people aren't even capable of it. 1 out of 5, 20%. And that's not so bad, because 1 out of 5 people you meet, you'll probably really like them, and like you'll understand where they're coming from, and they're gonna be good friends, definitely. But everybody else, it's just like I don't know how else to put it other than like it's just messed up. Like you can't get mad because it does nothing. These people are literally incapable of even conceiving that they are able to be wrong and immoral because of some incredibly dumb reason because they can't make sense of like anything that truly matters, like enriching life in this short life. Like even though like our average lifespan has lengthened since the Stone Age, that's just something that people actually fucking struggle at. I don't know how to feel about that, because like here's the thing, I don't believe it's a freaking excuse, and it isn't. It really isn't. I don't believe you need that kind of intelligence to understand the notion that you should just not harm people. Like it's very elementary, all right? You just like understand like people can suffer, and we should do our best to minimize that, so that way we can live enriching life, or as enriching as we can make it. And it's like so it's like I have to roll a dice just to be able to make sure that the other person understands that life is something you can't place a value on, because honestly, you may as well just burn down a village to save one life, because that life is worth way more than the village. And of course, you can freaking argue that the village, helps more people live and whatnot, and all that if you want to be an heuristic. But you get my freaking point when I say that it doesn't matter how tall the Eiffel Tower is or the biggest skyscrapers in the world. If somebody's life is at risk, and whatnot, and you had to like make like an absurd choice between like the most memorable, like one of the 7 wonders of the world for a life, you sacrifice the wonder of the world for that life. All right, that's just how it freaking works. Now you could argue criminals and whatnot, but honestly, at this point, you are just being an heuristic, and I really could not care less. We could go into details later if we want to, but honestly, I understand why they do it the most. Why they play this game of you have to consider all this, and then this analogy isn't accurate and whatnot. No, it's just, come on, you get my freaking point, and if you don't, I have to question if you're even capable of doing that. So it's like, but and like getting mad about things is absolutely normal. One of the things about being human is that you're gonna get mad. Like if something goes wrong, you're gonna get mad about it, and there are reasons why. Most people think it's cringe and incredibly stupid when a professional psychologist says that your anger is a secondary emotion that comes from something else, like sadness or that kind of stuff, or even disgust. Like elementary first stage first level emotions. Anger is like the next level over, I guess, the next level above that. And people can't, it's just, wow. I'm so lightheaded. I felt like I was listening to myself as if I was a different person talking. I gotta end this part. I will continue this video tomorrow and whatever topics come to mind tomorrow. Well, it's tomorrow, and honestly, I ended up complaining for a super long time about lots of stupid things. But honestly, I think it works out anyway because people tend to listen to people complaining because it usually antagonizes their beliefs or whatnot. And so they feel obligated to have to say something. So, being incredibly bitter about the world will make people somehow more interested in you. Because talking about, like, fun stuff, I don't think that ever gets any responses whatsoever. I don't think people care about stuff like surgery because, or rather, even if we did talk about surgery, most people could only say something like, like, wow, surgeons are super talented. How on earth do they put together giant wounds and how they replace organs and stuff? Wow, they're really amazing and they're lifesavers. One of my family members was saved from like cancer or a tumor or rotting flesh or something by a surgeon, a surgeon removed like a bullet from my like father's brain, which was super complicated and super dead, super like high risk, but he managed to succeed, and holy shit, that's like so talented and whatnot. Most of what people can say about that kind of stuff is essentially, oh wow, how amazing that they can just do that, but they could never go into the specifics and how it actually works, nor the organs, and just like how neat it is as surgery for what it is. It's what you can do with it, which isn't necessarily bad, but conversations get pretty fucking stale if the only thing you can say is, that's amazing, that's amazing, that's amazing. I know another person who's also amazing, but who does the same amazing thing, but it's amazing, it's amazing, it's amazing. And one of the things I know about surgery is how to tie a surgical knot. It really isn't that hard. Tying a surgical knot is pretty easy. You just take two things, do this, do that, up and through this loop. You mainly are just supposed to use your right hand, but you can also use your left hand, but yeah, that's how you do it. Unfortunately though, I don't think I'm going to make this longer than it already is. I'm just going to upload this video as is and make a second part, because as we go on, I'll just talk about more and more boring stuff. Such as, old obscure games such as I Want to Be the Guy and stuff like Tetris, chess, and AI technology, arts, and music, and whatnot. Cooking, why not? I'll talk about that too. Those are just some of the things I will talk about, but going into depth into them will probably be a bit different of an experience for most people, but I genuinely do not expect anyone to care about the stuff that I will talk about as time goes on. I try to make things more entertaining by talking about things that people would care about more, which generally is like issues about the world, shock content, sex stuff, those are like the most common things that will ever get people's attention. So I don't know what else to say really. Like if we want to start a conversation or get like something done, well, you just do that. You just fucking drop something that will get a reaction out of people, and they'll react. Because they sure as hell aren't gonna react as, like dog facts or whatever. Nor like, know about like obscure animals, like volcano snails, or so I dubbed them. They're like iron or steel toe snails or something of the sort, which, are an animal that exists, which I think is neat. Because life is also neat, but, people won't care about that. This video is essentially my steel man proof that literally nobody cares about interesting topics, or at least the stuff that interests me. And as we go on, I will talk about more stuff that is more of my interest. This stuff is genuinely just like day-to-day stuff that I do not give a shit about whatsoever. This is just boring stuff. Like, yes, the world sucks. People genuinely cannot conceive of simple things. It's a literal fucking observable fact that many people lack the ability to critically think nor understand that people have human rights. Not from laws or from God, but simply because they deserve it, and this is a system which we have applied it on, and yada yada yada. And also, even though I started on math and whatnot, it still had something to do with, emergence. So, honestly, if that didn't get your attention for what it's worth as shop content and the most basic crap that actually gets people to listen, or honestly, at least their attention, not listen, but, yep. Hope you guys enjoyed this part of boring topics. I will be talking about stuff that interests me or stuff that makes me passionate about stuff. In fact, I'll probably sound actually happy with the stuff that I talk about. But for now, I hope you guys enjoyed this semi-boring topic, or at least the topics that, honestly, the only reason why I talk about these things is because I'm mad and want to get the feelings off of my chest. That's what I actually am passionate about and like and would enjoy talking about. I know you guys wouldn't care. Or I guess not necessarily some of the subscribers and the people who are interested in listening to what I've said. There are a few. I can list them by name. But for everybody else who's just like watching this video simply because, yeah, I doubt it.